Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be stand your ground or get jerked around. Well, I've got two emails I'm going to go through with you today, and both of these guys are getting jerked around a little bit. One of them in a pretty big way. But before we get into it, I got a short quote that I wrote I want to share with you. And it says, people tend to see what they want in their relationships. They tend to ignore the reality of when things suck or when things are getting worse in order to avoid dealing with painful emotions, consequences, avoiding responsibility, or the potential end of their relationships. Human beings are the ultimate self-bullshitters. We notice what's not working, but out of our desire to avoid pain, we do nothing because doing nothing feels better than doing something that can potentially lead to things getting worse or more painful. If you don't stand up for yourself and what you want in life and your relationships, you are creating the conditions for other people to jerk you around, take you for granted, and take advantage of you. So let's go ahead and jump into the first email. This guy says, "Hey Corey, it's me again." I get hundreds of emails every week, and people seem to think I remember every single I don't even remember emails that I answered from 2 or 3 days ago, let alone ones from several months ago. So I wish I had a perfect photographic memory, but that's just not me. He says, "I've emailed before and I've also done a phone session with you and it's helped tremendously, so here's the scoop these days. After our last phone session, my ex contacted me and we ended up hanging out for 3 weeks from November until December. She had been seeing this guy at another city before this, not her ex-husband. She told him she just wanted to be friends and we started hanging out. She ended up wanting to move back in and get our family together and this and that by the end of her lease in January. We never had sex." That's definitely a red flag. She wants to move back in and all this stuff and no sex. Sounds like she's definitely controlling things. And this is part of standing up for what you want. Because if you take somebody back who ditched you previously, and by hanging back and letting them come back to you, if they come back and when you tell them, "Hey, I'm not interested in being just friends with you," women are going to try to see what they can get away with, especially in these kinds of circumstances, especially if there's 2 or 3 other guys. Obviously, at one point she was hooking up with the ex-husband and probably a couple of other dudes, and even though you said this was unacceptable, being just friends, she comes back and won't give it up, basically. It's just one of the ways, and that's when you got to say, hey, if she stops you when you're making a move on her, you say, "Look, you wanted to come back. This was your idea. You wanted to make an effort. You said you were willing to put the effort in to make us work, and now you don't want to be intimate?" It's like, this doesn't work for me. This is still you trying to offer me friendship only. I'm not interested in living under the same roof if we're not going to be intimate with one another. Then we're just being roommates. It's like, that doesn't work for me. I'm not interested now. And I did go through and look at some of the other emails that this guy had sent me in the past and from some of our phone sessions that we had. And he was dating another girl at the time as well, but he doesn't mention anything about her in this particular email. He says, "I would try, but she would say no. We would kiss and cuddle, and then her time of the month came. Can't have sex because I'm on my period now. Darn. The following week, we talked, and we were going to do it, haha. Well, she got into bed one night and said there's no sexual attraction. I said, okay, well, it's not going to work then." Bingo, good fucking answer. You stood up for yourself, at least in that moment. But there for a while, you were going on and thinking, okay, well, maybe she's not feeling well. Maybe it's going to change. And at the end of the day, this woman is telling you one thing, but she's doing another. And as a man, that's why you need to stand up for yourself and just say, this doesn't work for me. I'm not interested in this at all. You're great. I'm glad we got a child together and all that, but, this is bullshit. She even bought me Christmas presents 2 hours prior to saying this. Well, women buy Christmas presents for their friends too. Just because she buys you Christmas presents doesn't mean she's going to sleep with you. The next morning, she woke up and left. Since then, she has decided to move to another city where this other guy lives. Oh yeah, She wants to move in with you and all this stuff and get the family back together and, hey, you know what? I'm going to move to another city. The other day, we got into a huge fight because I stood my ground and said I want to see my kid on the days that we agreed upon. She got mad and said I was a selfish asshole and stuff to leave. Hey, interesting. See what happens here? This is probably typically how it went in your relationship before. She'd get pissed off, get a little bit angry, and you go, oh, I'm sorry. This is what you see on every TV show. The guy wants something, and the woman's like, I don't think so. Oh, I'm sorry, dear. Oh, please forgive me. He's walking on eggshells. Fuck that bullshit. So that's the kind that, this is when a woman says that I was being a selfish asshole and got her stuff to leave, and you say, hey, I'm not being a selfish asshole. I'm just holding you to what our agreement was. And you're not going to weasel out of it. That's not honorable. Don't come here and try to change terms of what we agreed upon. That is not cool. She no longer wanted to talk or see me. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. You got to let them go. Because sometimes women will huff and they'll puff and they'll try to blow your house down to see what you're made of. And you're just like, hey, this is not... It's like you agree to something and she shows up and goes, hey, you know what? Instead of what I committed to, here's this great shit burger. Just eat it and smile. I don't think so. You can eat that yourself, honey. He says, I told her that I had been trying, but she calls or texts me every day. So anyway, since then, 2 days ago, she has still continued to contact me about our son. Tonight she came in and we talked and joked around. I put our son in the car and said goodbye, and off they went. My question is this. Do you think hanging out 3 weeks straight caused this? Well, hanging out for 3 weeks straight without any sex, you weren't standing up for yourself, and you put up with her bullshit for 3 weeks. And she was just probably testing the waters to see how she felt when she was with you, and you still weren't really standing up for yourself, because she says she's going to give you everything. She's going to come back and move in with you, and now she's going to just all of a sudden move to another city and be with another guy? Fuck that noise. I hope that other girl that you were still dating in your last email is still around. I'd be calling her, inviting her over for dinner. He says, I feel I wasn't weak or needy, but who knows? Well, you were weak because you didn't stand up for yourself. I don't see any neediness, but the bottom line is you went along with her bullshit for about 3 weeks before you finally said, hey, this ain't going to work for me. But at least you stood up for yourself. That's the important thing. And so when you stand up for yourself, she leaves, and you're like, okay, see you later. She may come back, she may not, but at least you stood up for yourself. At least she'll respect you because you were a fucking man finally. So good fucking job. He says, I've read your book 4 times and I seem to understand a little better. I try and stay happy, but sometimes I am so sad. You can't have no control over what she feels towards you. And at the end of the day, somebody else's opinion of you, it's none of your fucking business. You did your part, you stood up for what you want, and she says, I'm out of here. You did your best. That's all you can do. Because just like the video I did the other day, sometimes you're going to give your very best, and it still ain't going to be enough. But, if you had a history of a couple of years of letting this woman walk all over you before you found my work and started standing up for yourself, it doesn't matter. Because think about this. The next woman you get into a relationship with, and you start standing up for yourself from the beginning, you'll never have to put up with this kind of fucking bullshit behavior or getting jerked around like this ever again. That should be freeing. You should be happy about that. That's something to celebrate. That's something to get excited about. Because you don't get what you deserve in life, only what you negotiate. The other morning, I dropped our son off before work at 5:30 a.m., and the dude's truck was there. Huh. Yeah, she was really making an effort with you, wasn't she? Then all day, I have a pit in my stomach. I love her, and she loves me. She loves you as a friend, dude. But she's got some other guy shacking up with her. Think about that. That's the reality of the situation. Guys always say, and she loves me too, but, she's just too busy to spend time with me. I know she loves me, but she's sleeping with this other guy. If she really loved you, dude, she wouldn't be sleeping with another guy. He says, but I'm tired of this limbo. It's been 6 months and my feelings have been playing harder than my guitar. Please help, Corey. It's let her go. Start hanging out and having fun and hooking up. Call those other girls that you were dating before this 3-week period of getting back together without really getting back together and having anything mature and adult, hey, you gave it your best shot. She still may come back, but at the end of the day, do you really want her back when she treats you this way, when she jerks you around? The idea is you want her to earn you back. And it's like kind of she came back on her terms and like, hey, I'm going to start dictating things. I'm going to start controlling things. And you're like, you finally stood up for yourself and said, And she says, oh, well, I'm just going to go back and jump in the bed with the other guy. Nice woman, by the way. So let's get on to the second guy's email. He says, hey, Coach, my ex-girlfriend and I were together for 2.5 years. She's 23 and I'm 30. I believe she broke up with me over 3 things. Number 1, stress in her life. Number 2, she was in love with me, but her feelings changed where she said there was no spark, which I feel is part of the stress. You're bullshitting yourself, dude. You obviously did and said things that caused her to fall out of love with you. It says people don't want to take any responsibility for their actions. And if you'd been dating her and courting her properly, this wouldn't have happened. And you'll see in a minute as we get further on down the email what really was going on in this particular case. He says, number 3, me not listening to her but giving her advice, which I realize now through reading your material is a mistake. Exactly, because now when that happens, she doesn't feel like you can understand her or that you can relate to her. He says, everything was great in our relationship. Obviously not, dude. She dumped you. There was lots of courting. I was always very romantic, courted her, and showed my love through acts of service. Through acts of service. Listen. In other words, I waited on her hand and foot, and I did whatever she wanted. I saw those TV shows where it showed that I've got to wait on her hand and foot like a manservant, and of course she'll love me. She loved you as a friend, but not as a lover, not as an equal, not as a partner. He says, we met through an online dating site and she lived about an hour away from my city when we were seeing each other about once a week where I either drove to her city or she drove to mine. Eventually she moved to the same city as me and she bought a new condo where she planned on having both of us move in together. We eventually started spending more time together to the point where I feel she lost her freedom and I lost mine. In other words, you became something you're not in order to please her. You're a pleaser. You went out of your way to be who you thought that she wanted you to be in order to make her happy, and all that ended up happening was you end up losing yourself in the process. And the guy that she was originally attracted to, the man that you were when she met you, turned out to be this little boy who was just a pleaser and really kind of looking for a mama and not a girlfriend. He says, things started to take a turn for the worse when we both decided to take a trip to Vegas together for a week. I was drinking and having a good time and even gambled too. A few days towards the end of our trip, she said she was unhappy and I asked her what was wrong. She said she missed her family and friends from the other city she lived in. I asked her if we had anything to do with her unhappiness and said, I don't know. Whenever somebody says, I don't know, they just don't want to say. And as a coach, when I ask people questions, and they've got fears around their answer, they'll just go, oh, I don't know. That's a bullshit statement. So any of you that are thinking about calling me in the future and you go, oh, gee, Corey, I don't know. You know, you're just bullshitting yourself. But I always know how to get it out of you. I'm good like that. So the bottom line is she knows that what the answer is, but she doesn't want to say. Why? Because she doesn't want to hurt your feelings. He says, we decided to take a counseling session together with a counselor she had been seeing for her eating disorder to work things through. We go to the first counseling session and the counselor asked on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, how I felt about being with her. And I said a 10. And she asked the same question of my ex and she said an 8. Well, I would have said, okay, well, what would be different in our relationship in order for you to say I was a 10? It was a 10. Our relationship is a 10. He says, our counselor asked if we could commit to 3 months of working on this together, and we both agreed. The next session, my ex broke up with me. What happened to 3 months commitment? He's like, come on, what was that all about? Next session, my ex broke up with me and said that she didn't feel things would change if we worked on it. So she committed to work on it, but not really. It was kind of like a fucking half-ass effort. You can't have a relationship with somebody who's not willing to work at it. I mean, it takes 2 people. And so her commitment was bullshit. Thanks for bullshitting me, honey. I really appreciate that. Thanks for going in this counseling session and just totally feeding me a line of bullshit. I really appreciate that. Love you too. This drove my mind wild, and even to this day, I still have a hard time struggling with it. After we broke up, I didn't drive to see her or have that stalker behavior, but I texted her over the couple of months trying to change her mind, which didn't work, obviously. That's acting like a stalker. When a woman ditches you and says, I'm not going to work on this anymore, you don't continue to call and blow up her phone trying to change her mind. That is also stalkerish like behavior. Stalkerish behavior doesn't mean just showing up at her place or showing up at her work or sitting out in front of her house, spying on her, seeing what she's doing. As she started to get frustrated and replied back, fuck dude, if I want to talk, I will contact you. You were acting like a stalker, bro. Come on, admit it. You're bullshitting yourself. He says, after that, I texted her and said, hey, I'm sorry I haven't been respecting your decision to give you the space you need, so let me know when you want to talk. We've almost been broken up for 4 months now, 2 months of which I was texting her, and the other 2 months where I eventually stopped chasing her. So maybe it's really only been about a month or maybe a few weeks. You're still bullshitting yourself, dude. And you're trying to bullshit the coach. Don't bullshit the coach because you can always tell. I've been practicing a lot of my social skills, meeting new people, and I've met about 40 new friends. Great fucking job, dude. That's what you should be doing. Because as soon as you meet a new girl who's got a great fucking attitude and she makes the effort, that totally changes your perspective. He says, I signed up for 2 dating sites, but at times I feel like I need to meet someone out of desperation. But maybe this is the fear that you've been talking about. Yeah, fear that you're never going to find anybody better. And that happens to everybody. Every single person who's ever been through a breakup, that shit will cross your mind. No matter how successful you are, no matter how many great relationships you've had in your life, no matter how many beautiful women you've enabled to fall completely at every heels in love with you and want to get married, want to have your children, doesn't matter. You're still the next one. You're like, is it going to go downhill from here? Am I going to meet somebody else? And as the days, the weeks, and the months roll on and you still haven't met anybody else, that shit's going to cross your mind. You can't help it. You got to find a way to live each day and take each one day at a time. Just like I said the other day, one play at a time, like Marty Schottenheimer learned. He says, my ex comes from a family that's divorced. Her father lives about 8 hours away and separated from her when she was at a young age, and she lived with her mother most of her life. So she probably never really formed a strong bond to men because she just didn't have a strong male role model in her life. So I can see why it's difficult for her to understand what it takes to love the other person. Plus she's young, she's only 23. She's got no fucking life experience at that age. Like my parents, have been together for 20 years, and even though they screamed and yelled at each other, they still love each other in the end. Well, screaming and yelling at one another is a really immature way to deal with things. That's what my mother used to do with my dad. She was always fucking screaming and yelling at him, bitching, complaining. Most of the time he just ignored her and took it, but every once in a while he'd stand up to her. Plus another factor is I'm her longest relationship she's ever had. Every other guy she met, she'd only been with for maybe 1 or 2 months. Anyways, I started to work on myself and bought a membership at the gym about 2 to 3 months ago. But yesterday, I saw my ex at the same gym on a treadmill. Huh, what a coinky-dink. So I did my regular out routine, and I started running on a treadmill, which was about 1 treadmill away from her. I know she noticed me, and she got off the treadmill 5 minutes later. I think she was texting someone at the time as well. Not sure who it was. Probably one of the 3 or 4 dudes she's sleeping with now. I looked at her as she left, and she ignored me and walked away. Oh, that's really fucking mature. So that tells you everything you need to know. She doesn't give a fuck. She doesn't care. She's over it, dude. Sorry to tell you, but that's what happens when you over pursue and you act like a stalker. That's why you gotta walk and never look back. He says, I want to know how to regain someone's respect and have her come back to me. She's got to decide to come back to you. She's got to decide that she wants to work on things. I stopped chasing her, and when she left, I didn't chase her. Yes, you did. and continue to do my thing. She didn't say hi, so neither did I. Yeah, that's real mature. I think she still expects me to chase her, and I say fuck that. Actually, when you look at the last thing she said to you was, fuck dude, if I want to talk to you, I will get in touch with you. It's not that she wants you to chase her. You already tried that. Think about it. In other words, I think she wants me to act like a stalker, and that might get her back, but I'm not going to do that. Come on. He says, but I want her to come back on her own as an option because I know she made a big mistake leaving me. Now that's a good attitude to have. I'm a fucking catch. It's her fucking loss. I mean, you're 30 and you got life experience. And what has she got? She's 23 years old. He says, even when she dumped me, she said, you're a great person, but she still left you. She's just trying not to hurt your feelings, dude. I don't think she realized it because she's young. Maybe, but it really doesn't matter. He says, I've read your book, and you have a good example where you bumped into a lady that you hadn't seen in years, and you just brushed her off and she came chasing. That's like the exception to the rule. That doesn't always happen. It's like flip a coin. What was interesting about that particular situation is I hadn't seen that girl in probably 4 years. I hadn't seen her at that point. And she had literally just broken up with her boyfriend, who she eventually got back together with and married. And, as far as I know, they're still together to this day. But it was like at the right time. I was really in love with this other girl, and I was actually out with this other woman's brother, and we were having a good time, and I ran into this chick who I hadn't seen in 4 years, and I had really screwed up with, because I really didn't know what I was doing back when I was dating her. This was like the first woman I met and was really gonzo over after I divorced my wife. And it was like timing. And I was in a perfect non-hungry state because I was totally in love with this guy's sister, and he and I were hanging out. We were going and flirting with chicks and picking up other girls at the time. And it was like, he was cool like that. And plus, then he'd go back and tell his sister, "You should have seen who Corey was with last night." He says, "That's what I'm doing now, but maybe you can give me some more insight on some other things that you've experienced." There is absolutely nothing you can do, and I would say just from her attitude and the treadmill, she's just like, she gave you the big hairy middle finger, dude. That's just fucking rude. Somebody that you were with all that time. I mean, I've never had an ex-girlfriend just ignore me like that. I mean, they always would come up and hug me and say hello, see how I'm doing. But, it's pretty fucking rude and immature. That just tells me she's pissed off and she's doing it on purpose, trying to play games with you. It's like, who fucking cares, She can take a flying fucking roll in a donut is what she can do. So, there's nothing you can do in that case. Is go on with your life. If she ever reaches out to you, just be like, "Hey, babe, great to hear from you. I'd love to see you when you're free to get together." And then invite her to come over to your place. Grab a bottle of wine, come over. We'll make dinner together. And if she ain't willing to do that, just say, "Hey, well, I'm kind of tired. It's been a long week. I'm just in the mood to hang. So if you're not down for coming over and us making dinner together, then give me a call in 2-3 weeks. And when things settle down, maybe we can meet out and do something a little more formal and go to dinner and all that stuff." I wouldn't go out of my way for a girl like that. Why? Because she doesn't fucking deserve it. I mean, she's one treadmill away from you, and you look at her and she just acts like you're not even there. She treats you like a fucking statue, or like, a piece of exercise equipment. It's like, come on, fuck her. Move on with your life. Like I said, if she ever reaches out, make a date to hang out, have fun, and hook up. But I would say, unfortunately, but maybe fortunately, put a fork in this one. It's done. You are fucking out of there, bro. Move on with your life. Meet somebody new. And the beauty of those kinds of situations is you get into a new relationship, you'll be happy, and you'll be with this girl that's 10 times more beautiful, and she'll see you, and she'll be by herself, and she'll be a fucking deer in the headlight. And I'll tell you what, man, that is a great fucking feeling when it happens. When a girl dicks you around like that, totally takes you for granted, mistreats you, jerks you around, and then, months or a year or two later, she sees you with this really hot girl, has an amazing effect on her. And back to that girl that I was with, after I think it was our second or third date, after we had hooked up, she ended up going back to her boyfriend. What was funny was one night I was out with her and we were going back to my place, and I ran into the boss of the other girl I was dating. And so, of course, when she went to work the next day, guess who I saw last night? I ran into Corey, and he was with this really beautiful girl. And so like 9 o'clock the next morning, I get a phone call, and sure enough, it was this other girl that I was dating and really in love with, but I kind of really wasn't going anywhere. And she's like, "Oh, just calling to see how your night and evening was going. How your night and evening went." And I was like, "It went great." She goes, "I heard she was really beautiful." I was like, "Yeah, she was. She was a babe." I didn't say ask your brother because he met her too, but I think he had already rubbed it in her face anyways. But you know, the other girl got back together with her boyfriend. When she got home that night, he was actually waiting on her doorstep all night, and of course she was with me. And so I ended up getting serious with this other girl anyways, which was who the one I really wanted. So it all worked out in the end. It doesn't matter. It's like life is grand. And that's why you can't let things like this get you down. You just got to keep trying to find a way to grind it out and have a good time and keep moving forward, because better always comes. Grind it out one step at a time. So if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way is to book a paid phone coaching session. You can do that by going to my website, clicking the products tab at the top of your screen, and either book phone, Skype, or email coaching, whichever option works good for you. And I will talk to you soon.